Who could be responsible for the University of Idaho unsolved murder mystery? Let's piece together the evidence and break it down. In the early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th, 2022, Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee were sadly murdered on the second and third floors of the University of Idaho off-campus house in Moscow, Idaho, while Bethany and Dylan slept on the first floor. This whole story is very odd and very suspicious, so let's piece together the evidence to make sense of it, to find out what really happened and develop a possible unidentified subject, unsub, profile. Now, let's get started. Madison and Kaylee were best friends from childhood and did everything together and attended the University of Idaho together. They were seniors graduating soon and got an off-campus house with some of their friends, Xana, Bethany, Dylan, and a dog named Murphy. Yes, 5 girls and a dog living in a 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. Madison and Kaylee were BFFs and even worked as servers at a restaurant called Mad Greek, just a 5-minute drive from their house. Xana was dating Ethan, but Ethan was not a permanent resident in the house. Madison was dating a guy named Jake, and Kaylee recently broke up with a guy named Jack, where they were in a long-term relationship for 5 years. Moscow is a small college town in Idaho, USA, and has a population of just 25,000. Saturday night, November 12th, exams have finished and Thanksgiving break was coming up, so naturally they all go out to socialize. Bethany and Dylan go out and come back to the house around 1 a.m. Madison and Kaylee, who were 21 years old, go out on Main Street to the corner club, get food from a grub truck.
When their food comes, Kaylee takes a short video to post on social media and they walk off together
and get a rideshare car service back to the house at 1:45 a.m. Xana and her boyfriend Ethan go to a fraternity party at Sigma Chi and are believed to have made it back to the house at 1:45 a.m. Now everyone that was expected and welcomed in the house is in the house for the night. Ethan was staying the night with Xana and presumably goes to sleep with her in her bedroom, while Madison and Kaylee likely continue to hang out. We know this because Kaylee's sister revealed that Kaylee called Jack, Kaylee's now ex-boyfriend, from her phone 6 times between 2:26 a.m. and 2:44 a.m. Then Madison gets involved and calls Jack 3 times between 2:44 and 2:52 a.m. And then Kaylee makes a final call to Jack at 2:52 a.m. This indicates that they were likely girl talking about boys, specifically about Kaylee's recent breakup with Jack around 3 a.m.
We're also aware of a male whom Madison and Kaylee had called several times the morning of November 13th. And we do not suspect that individual.
Police estimate that the murders took place between 3 and 4 a.m. The coroner said that they were all killed in their beds. Some had defensive wounds, no signs of sexual assault, and police said that there was no sign of forced entry.
There was no sign of forced entry into the residence. We do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there.
Therefore, this seems to indicate that the unsub was either in the house waiting for everyone to go to sleep to make their move, or was watching from the outside waiting for them to go to sleep and knew of an easy access to enter the house through an open door or window. What's interesting is that Bethany and Dylan were completely unharmed, and they were also ruled out as possible suspects. In cases like these, connecting commonalities can be very insightful. Bethany and Dylan apparently went to sleep around the same time, and both slept in rooms on the first floor where the primary entrance is located. Therefore, if the unsub had snuck through the primary door, they would have had to pass by Bethany and Dylan on the way up to the second and third floors of the house where all the murders would take place. Also, it's quite odd that Bethany and Dylan did not hear any struggle because the coroner said that there were some defensive wounds, which indicates that there was a struggle. And a struggle typically leads to what? Right, loud noises such as screams, yells, forceful movements, loud thuds, and possibly even their dog Murphy barking all right above their heads as they're sleeping in their rooms on the first floor. And take a look at the house too. It looks like one of those more cheaply built houses from the 1970s, where you can easily hear footsteps and noises from higher floors since there was hard floors throughout and no carpet, which also made it easier for noises to echo throughout the house. Bethany and Dylan reportedly get up late the next morning around noon and claim to have found their housemates unconscious and call 911.
The call reported an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence, and a surviving roommate's cell phone was used. During that call, the dispatcher spoke to multiple people.
Kind of odd they initially reported them as just unconscious when police described the crime scene as the most gruesome they've ever seen.
How does one individual kill 4 people at night and not wake up the other 2 roommates? Our investigation will continue to look at all avenues of that investigation.
Hopefully, when more information becomes public, their actions and account will make more sense. This clearly seems to be a targeted attack. There was an apparent attempt by the unsub to limit the damage because Bethany and Dylan's lives were specifically spared. Since Madison and Kaylee were more public with social media and were servers at a restaurant in town, and Ethan sleeping with his girlfriend Xana may have been sadly collateral damage to ensure that Ethan, the male, did not fight or disarm the unsub. According to police, the unsub used a fixed blade knife, which implies that based on the massive damage caused, the blade was so long that it was unable to collapse into the handle. So this weapon was probably a large kitchen knife or a hunting Rambo knife. Typically, the choice of using a very large knife indicates that the unsub is either an amateur or very experienced. Amateur because they just used whatever big knife they can find in their kitchen or hunting bag, or on the other hand, experienced because a longer blade is more difficult to manage and wield successfully in a fight. In this case, the unsub seems experienced because they were able to sneak into their house undetected, quickly and quietly kill 4 people in close proximity with just a blade, not waking up the housemates who slept directly below and apparently left little to no evidence behind. After all, the murder weapon was not recovered.
And we continue looking for what we believe to be a fixed blade knife.
This unsub may have had some military, law enforcement, or covert tactical training. The unsub may have been stalking Madison and Kaylee on social media, so tracking down who was obsessively viewing their social medias could provide some additional leads. Since the unsub seems to be someone who is more experienced, what could be their motive? The police said there were no signs of sexual assault, and a knife attack can be very quiet and leave the fewest traces. However, a knife attack requires the greatest skill to accomplish that successfully. So the unsub could be a hitman, but who would order a hit on some college kids? The analysis from the autopsy results would likely tell police the possible motive. Wounds mainly on the neck and heart would indicate the unsub wanted to get the job done quickly, and there is the possibility that it was a hitman. Overkill type wounds due to rage on specific victims would indicate the unsub is possibly an ex-boyfriend or stalker of that victim.
We have heard mention that Kaylee stated she may have had a stalker. Detectives have been looking into that, and to this point have been unable to corroborate the statement, although we continue to seek information and tips regarding that report.
Wounds on reproductive regions would indicate that it was likely a serial killer. In criminal psychology, there's something called piquerism. This is where an impotent male carries out his sexual desires on someone through skin penetration, typically with a knife.
The results of autopsies indicated that the 4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds, and there was no sign of sexual assault.
Was there anything missing in the home, or were the purses still there? Any robbery attempt, anything like that?
Nothing that we have identified.
Now in the comments, what do you think happened in Idaho to those poor college students? Let everyone know in the comments below. Subscribe and follow for more.